Hello everyone, welcome to this episode, the 101st episode of the Ratliff Mandolins weekly production diary. It is Monday, just a little bit after 12 o'clock, and I've already had a very busy day. I think I counted it up on my phone. I've had 11 phone calls today already, and I've taken in a couple of mandolins for, I don't usually do too much in the way of repair work, but it's kind of hard to turn a friend down. So I've got one come in earlier today that needs a refret and a planed fretboard, and then this Michael Kelly here, nice little mandolin, but it's got a high fret and it needs to have that knocked down. So I've got a couple of repairs that's come in today already, and then I intend to pick back up where we left off last week, wrapping binding on the peg heads of these 4 remaining mandolins. And this mandolin here has had the green stain applied and a tack coat, but it doesn't have any of the binding scraped off, and it doesn't have any really good clear build coats of lacquer put on it. So all of these things are, hopefully, I'll get to do most of them. I won't get the big mandolin in there, but I may get this one fixed. We'll see before the day's over with and my students show up this afternoon. So I'm going to get to it. People have asked me why I don't use ebony for an overlay. Frankly, I just don't like it. I like working with this stuff right here. Most of the ebony that you get anymore has streaks and all sorts of bad spots and stuff in it, so I'm going to stain it anyway to even that blackness up. So if I'm going to stain it anyway, why not use something that's a little easier to work with? And that's why I don't use ebony. Looks pretty rough right now, doesn't it? And that was just a little bit of footage of me putting the flowers in mandolin number 4. Here, I put the vine in yesterday, just before my students showed up. And so today I've got the flowers put in. The only thing left to completely assemble this mandolin is the logo here, and I'll do that tomorrow morning, I guess. So time to move on to some of the other mandolins. My work plan for today is to just work my way down the line here. I will take and put another piece of binding on each of these, and then I will take 220 grit paper and just smooth out, without being too aggressive, the build coats that I shot on the green one yesterday. Shoot another coat of finish on it, and then if there's any time left over at the end of the day, I will start right back here at the head of the line and head that direction again. So that's what we're going to do. This is mandolin number 3. So when I've wrapped this last piece of binding on the peg head of mandolin number 3, it too is pretty much ready for the next stage, which will be final sanding before finish. Mandolin number 3 has a tortoise binding, and interestingly enough, it is another one of those that would be somewhat unusual in its coloring. It's going to have a cream top and a cream peghead face. Going to a nice fella over in North Carolina. So this is mandolin 3, and I have just glued on the last piece of binding, and so it is done. Nothing left but sanding and staining now. And that is the third from the last piece of binding to go on mandolin number 5. Mandolin number 5 is a master model that's going to Ohio. It's got bird's eye maple, and it too is going to have a little bit of an odd sunburst. It's going to be a cherry sunburst, so I've done plenty of those before, and it'll be fine. It'll be a pretty mandolin when we're done with it. Mandolin number 5. So now we're just going to get us some good lights set up and sand on this green mandolin pretty much for the rest of the afternoon. I've got a doctor's appointment later this afternoon, and I'm going to guess that there won't be time to do much more than just sand this one, and hopefully enough to get a coat of finish on it. So we're going to make some progress anyway. It is now Wednesday afternoon, and after working on mandolin number 1 here yesterday afternoon and this morning, I got it to the point where it was ready to shoot the final coats of finish on, which I have just got through doing. And so now mandolin number 1 is completely finished. A nice satin country boy finish, and it's going to hang right here alongside mandolin number 10 to await the curing and then the hardware and the strings. So for right now, we're just going to let her hang there for at least a week or 10 days. For the rest of this Wednesday afternoon, I'm going to concentrate on the mandolin peg heads that we have left over. Number 3 has got all of its binding put on. This is mandolin number 2. It needs 2 pieces of binding to be put on. Mandolin number 5 over there needs 2 pieces put on. And mandolin number 4 has all of the binding on, but we are putting the inlay in it, and I've got part of the name inlaid, the logo, but I don't have the R and the dot on the I put in, so getting ready to do that as well. And that's going to pretty much take up the rest of my Wednesday. So at the end of the day on Wednesday, we have the final coats of finish on mandolin number 1, the green mandolin. Mandolin number 2 has the final piece of binding wrapped. Mandolin number 3, we had the last piece of binding on it yesterday. Mandolin number 4, we have, although it's not been cleaned up, we have all of the inlay in the peg head. And mandolin number 5 has the peg head completely bound, and it is ready for its inlay as well, because it is a master model and it'll get basically the same inlay pattern as mandolin number 4. It is Thursday morning, and my battle plan for the day's work is to do what I can in here, and that's going to include 2 or 3 different things. I want to take the string off of the mandolin peg heads that have the last piece of binding wrapped on, number 5 and number 2, and I need to clean the inlay up on mandolin number 4. And I noticed that none of them have the ferrule holes cut in the peg head, and I'll explain that to you. When you're drilling these holes for the peg head, first thing I do is just drill a hole for the keys themselves. And then there's those little collars called ferrules that go in there, and those take a secondary hole a little bit bigger. So you have basically, if you look at this part, it's going to have a small hole, and you look at this part, it's going to have a bigger hole. That bigger hole only goes so far down the peg head. So all these necks were built at different times, and so I noticed that some of them have the secondary hole for the ferrules drilled in, and some of them do not. So I probably need to, before I forget that and do anything silly, I probably need to go in there and just make sure, just set up the drill press and come back and check every one of them and take them in there and drill that secondary ferrule hole. So I'm going to do that. And the mandolin that I showed you Monday, the one with the high fret, I have to make sure that the fella can have it tomorrow, and I have lazed around and haven't done that at all this week. So that's another thing on today's list of things to do, is to make sure that I can deliver that mandolin to that fella tomorrow. So I'm going to carry the camera with me today and just set it up and shoot a little bit of footage of me doing all that stuff. And so just come along with me and spend Thursday with me. Here we go. Mandolin number 5. Also, I don't know if I'll get to it today or not, but this one needs to be inlaid as well. Here we have mandolin number 2. This mandolin is going to New York State, I think, and it's not going to have a sunburst. It's going to have a solid chocolate brown finish, I think, or maybe a light brown. I'll have to look at the work order. I'm just going to knock off this excess right here. And that's good enough for right now. And number 4, I just want to level that logo up. I'm going to put just wipe a coat of stain on it so you can kind of not be blinded by the blondness of the wood. Now I know you're probably fruiting out right now saying, wow, that's awfully mottled and nasty looking, and the answer is yes, it is. But trust me, it won't be by the time we get done with it. And that is as far as we're going to go with mandolin number 4 right at the moment. Let's go fix those peg head and ferrule holes. As it turns out, there's 6 of them that needs to be drilled. I have a special homemade drill bit that I use just exclusively for this job. And now that job is done and I don't have to worry about it anymore. I neglected to mention it earlier, but one of the things that I did have on the job jar list that I should have mentioned was I want to put frets in mandolin number 2, which is the next one in line for putting the finish on. So now the fretboard is leveled and radiused, it's time to put the frets in. Well, there it is. Number 2 is fretted, and now I'm going to go work on that repair. And now on to a sick little Michael Kelly mandolin with a high fret. Boy, it's pretty. It is Friday morning. Yesterday's Michael Kelly repair turned out to be a fairly simple thing. Simply a high fret, tapped it back down in there, dressed them, cleaned everything up. Actually, the strings were a little high at the nut, so I lowered the action there, and the little mandolin plays well. And it's a nice little mandolin and ready to be picked up now by the customer. Now, for the work today, Friday, I have pretty much a long, dull, boring day sanding planned. My only choice is which mandolin do I want to do that with. I can do it with this one right here. It's hung here long enough to cure out and be ready to be 2000 grit sanded and polished out, and it'll take all day or a day and a half to do that. And the other choice is to take this one and sand it for finish prep. Now, my normal procedure is when I have a mandolin here that's got its final coats put on, usually by the time I get this one done, this one is cured long enough that it's time and it's ready to have the hardware and stuff put on it. So having said that, I think I will choose to work on this one right here. It is mandolin number 10. It's an R5 master model, and so I think I will just sit here with a 2000 grit piece of sandpaper and sand. Like I said, it'll take most of the day, and by the time I'm done with that, it'll be time to start up with the polishing compounds, different grits, and polish this thing to a mirror finish. And then sometime early next week, Monday probably, Monday afternoon maybe, we will be ready to put the strings and hardware strings and all that stuff on this mandolin. And so come back next week and you'll get a chance to hear a tune or two on this mandolin maybe. And until then, I would like to say thank you so very much for watching all the way to the end of this video. Please come back each and every week for the next episode of the Ratliff Mandolins Weekly Production Diary. Hit the like and subscribe button, and please tell all your friends and everything about this channel and the weekly videos that we do. And Thank you again, and we'll see you next week.